folks. Happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us today, folks. We've got a lot to cover. I don't know how we're going to get into 90 minutes, but folks, so much to talk about with the wildfires in Los Angeles. It is so much more than just a fire. We're going to dive into the policies that got us to this point. We're pointing fingers all over the place. Buckle up today. There's a lot to go on here.
And this just in, folks, you crazy liberals in California that allow this situation to happen, the main finger's pointing at you.
Yeah, this just in. Spoiler alert, we're blaming Democrat policies today. It's going to be good.
Right. But Todd, before we get going, we would be remiss to our audience if we didn't take a second and address the sentencing of President Trump that just happened minutes ago.
We got to talk about this.
We got to talk about this. For those who are unaware, President Trump was being sentenced today for his hush money trial with Stormy Daniels by Judge Merchant. In a big disappointment, none of the appeals courts would overrule it. They're going to make him appeal. It even made it to the Supreme Court. And Todd, the savior, Amy Coney Barrett. What did Amy Coney Barrett do on this one?
Oh, so I'll tell you this, folks. It was 5-4, and you might be thinking to yourself, there are 6 Republican-appointed justices. But as we see time and again, there's always Roberts might as well be a Democrat appointee. He never supports the conservative movement. But Roberts, it's either Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett. There's always one that goes in the other direction. And Jason, as I was telling you before the show, they all got nominated for one reason only, and that was to overturn Roe v. Wade. Now, that is a good thing. We should be celebrating that. Roe belonged back in the States. We can finally be done talking about it. But there are so many other legal issues in the country besides abortion. And so in this case, how is it that the Supreme Court doesn't overturn this ridiculous lawfare attack against Donald Trump? Amy Coney Barrett found some reason to agree with the likes of Sonia Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson. What does that say about you, Amy Coney Barrett, when you agree with these people?
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't imagine what it's like interacting with Sotomayor and some of those guys on a daily basis. But I got to think anybody with a functioning brain, looks at Kenji Brown, I don't know what a woman is, and they're like, are you insane? And what on earth? And if you find yourself agreeing with them, you have to question your judgment. But as I was reviewing that, because it was just happening in real time, this is how bad it is. The best summary I found was from Geraldo Rivera, who said it way better than I could have. Todd, do you want to read what Geraldo Rivera says?
Let's take a read. And again, just to let this sink in, how bad Amy Coney Barrett's decision was. We're reading from Geraldo Rivera, of all people, who gives the best synopsis of why this is a ridiculous situation. So Geraldo writes over on X, because of the twisted use of several New York State statutes, DA Bragg was able to get this case. Here, I got to go to my other screen to read this. Some of it's cut off. Was able to get this case past SCOTUS and before a hostile New York City jury. Convicting a president-elect criminally is so monumental an event it should concern something more significant than writing a check to cover up an otherwise legal liaison with a porn star. The fact that all of the legal cases against Donald Trump, this is the only one that reached a verdict in sentencing, says volumes about those who ruthlessly pursued this president through misuse of lawfare. He has been sentenced to unconditional release, 0 jail time, 0 probation. Still, he is technically a convicted felon, and he will enter the White House as a convicted felon. It is a spiteful process.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I got to give a shout out. First Rumble check-in. Dee Dee's in the house.
Good morning, Dee Dee.
Good morning, Dee Dee. Although it looks like comments weren't loading real fast from Rumble, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, Geraldo sums this up. So what they charged President Trump with was a misdemeanor. It was a campaign finance violation. Essentially, the case was he should have wrote the check out of his campaign fund instead of his personal fund. So nothing illegal, and nobody's alleging anything was illegal with the transaction with Stormy Daniels. So whether you think it's good, bad, ugly, if it happened or didn't happen, all that doesn't matter. He wrote a check. That's confirmed. The check was confirmed. Nothing illegal happened between them. But because he wrote the check out of his personal account instead of his campaign account, they said it was a campaign finance violation. Now, personally, if you're going to write a check for something like that, I would think it would come out of your personal money instead of campaign money, but that's neither here nor there. And if it's a misdemeanor, which, by the way, multiple politicians have been charged with this in states before, it's a misdemeanor, you pay a fine. They had to tie it to a second underlying crime, which right now has been unnamed. And that's how they're able to elevate it to a felony.
Unnamed crime. Here, you're convicted of a felony. By the way, we're not going to name it.
Right. So if we've covered this ad nauseum, we don't need to go into much of this. We just wanted to address it. Now, here's the point, and here'll be my message for President Trump on the off chance this video crosses your feed somewhere. One, I think that this was clearly a political prosecution. I think they have bastardized our legal system by doing this. And I think going after people in this manner, even though I think it's wrong and shouldn't be a thing, it is going to continue to happen until somebody goes after Democrats and those in power for doing it. You're telling me Alvin Braggs in his job hasn't written a check out of the wrong account, through the DA's office? You're telling me none of these politicians have done it? Until we fire back at them, they're going to continue punching. And it was funny on one of the Wayne Dupree podcasts, I do that during the week. We got into it. Wayne's like, we need to take the high road. I'm like, I am sick and tired of conservatives taking the high road. The only thing that stops this is going after them stronger. And it's like, I use the example of a bully. If you got a kid and your kid's being bullied, whining about it, taking the high road only gets you so far. Until you turn around and punch him in the mush, it's never going to stop. And that's what I hope President Trump does. You don't need to go farther than they did. Just go as far as they did, and it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, no more high road. That's what Amy Coney Barrett did. She said, I'm not going to get involved. We're the Supreme Court. This is a state issue. Like, that's the high road right there. She thought she was doing the right thing. But to your point, Jason, it just continues. And I got to point out, one of the comments under this tweet was spot on. They're like, hold on a second. He's a convicted felon, but he's not going to pay fines or serve time, and there's no probation. So there's nothing attached to a felony.
Right.
How are you convicting someone of a felony and there are zero punishment? Something doesn't add up there either.
Right. Well, and that's the point, is that the only thing this accomplishes is lets people call him a felon.
Correct.
So I will tell you what, every politician, every liberal influencer that wants to call President Trump a convicted felon, every single one of you bastards, I hope he investigates you like he's been investigated, and they find some ticky-tack crime like this, and they go after you in that same manner. And then let's see how you come out. Nobody has been investigated more than Donald Trump in my lifetime, and this is all they can stick him with. It is a bunch of crap.
And Jason, I love this comment. I was actually going to make this point here as well. Didi writes, release the congressional, and then there's a typo, and I'm going to get to Didi's comment because I think it's hilarious. Slush fund participants. Didi wanted to say release the congressional slut fund. I'm going to call that from now on. It's not a slush fund. It's a slut fund. Thanks, Didi, for that comment. But yes, folks, at least $17 million of your tax money has been paid to keep people quiet that were involved in some activity with your elected officials and their worker bees that work up on Capitol Hill. $17 million of hush money has been paid out using your tax dollars. Nothing to see here, but when it comes to Donald Trump, he wrote a check out of the wrong account, and so suddenly he's a convicted felon.
Right. Yeah, and shout out, too, we got K-Gun Girl in the house.
The gang's all here.
The gang's all here. We're just waiting on a few more people over there. And it's funny, I won't share the comment, but she says, Wayne's losing it lately, and not wanting him to take the high road. And Wayne and I, we disagree about this on the show, and I won't say anything behind his back. I won't say to his face. I think too often conservatives fall in this let's take the high road mindset, and we've done that my entire lifetime, and we keep losing ground. And if we don't draw a line in the sand and start fighting back, we're not going to have a country left to save. And yeah, for those who don't know about the Congressional Slut Fund, go on www.theamericantribune.news. Todd, was it you or Will that wrote that piece like a year ago?
That was Will. I think I only wrote like 3 pieces. That was all Will.
Yeah, we had a congressional slush fund article we wrote literally a year ago, and now it's coming out. We had what's his name? Matt Gaetz retweeted it. And yeah, people don't know there is a slush fund that they use to pay off congressional sexual harassment claims, and you can't even see it. It was crazy.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, they're going to run with it. Convicted felon. Oh, he's a convicted felon. And you just want to look around, and you can point out Bill Clinton paying people off. Paula Jones proudly showed her big check there. It's absolutely insane that this is a story. And I remember, Jason, this is the same brother-in-law that stopped, or the same friend of mine whose brother stopped talking to him because Trump was going to somehow deport his naturalized or American-born husband. He was going to dissolve his marriage. So this same idiot we were talking before the election as well just couldn't get over the fact that he's going to be a convicted felon. He had sex with a porn star. He had an affair. And this was a lawyer. He went to law school, and he was trying to find a crime with an affair. And you're just like, these people actually think this is a thing.
Right. Well, and it's amazing, too, that just how uneducated people are. And that's part of today's episode. You know, when we started doing the podcast, we did some kind of deep dive educational, Social Security. We did corn subsidies. We're doing a little bit of that because with this fire, Todd, this encompasses every liberal bad idea ever. And it's like when you're making like a casserole or you're making soup and you're just throwing whatever's in the kitchen together. That's what's happened with these wildfires. Take illegal immigrants, you take bureaucracy, you take poor fire management, you take misallocation of resources, you take every single thing, you throw it into a bucket, and you're left with California burning. Oh, hey, Francis is in the house too. Can he pardon himself? This is actually a state crime, not a federal. So answer to that, sadly, no. He would have to appeal, of all things. So while he's serving as president, he'd have to appeal, and it would likely be overturned.
Speaking of your comment, though, about the soup, the insane Democrat communist soup of all their bad ideas, Stephen Miller, part of the Trump campaign here, Trump team, talks about, this is his quote, spot on, when you orient every level of society around social agendas, political agendas, ideological agendas, racial agendas, gender agendas, everything but merit, competence, and performance and national interest, it will always end in catastrophe. Jason, as we get into the fires here, you've got the political ideology of climate change, of environmentalism, protecting small, useless animals. You've got hiring the wrong people. You've got sending equipment overseas because Eastern European countries needed our help so badly, and we wanted to take a stand for them and virtue signal our support. Like, it all came together, and now we are witnessing absolute destruction of the Los Angeles area.
Oh my God. I do gotta highlight one more comment on the Trump thing, though, because Edward had a great one from Facebook. I'm a convicted felon, and Trump by far is not a felon. But the people who prosecuted him, they are felons, and they should be prosecuted right along with all the Democrats that have committed treasonous Biden crime family, Clinton's, Obama's, Pelosi, and the rest. You know, it's funny. I'm a conservative, but I hated the Republican Party before Trump. And I thought they were all corrupt and awful people. Can you imagine in our lifetime, the only politician of any significance that's been convicted of a crime is Donald Trump? You're telling me Bill Clinton didn't do worse crimes? You're telling me that the Bushes didn't? It's laughable. I'm fired up. Todd, I think I drank too much Split Rock coffee.
I'm on my 5th cup of Split Rock coffee, Jason. I am beyond fired up at this point. I'm trying to keep it together here, but folks, it is so insane. What really bothers me, Jason, I'm going to go on a quick rant, and then we got to talk about the wildfires. We're 15 minutes in. We're going on other tangents here. We got Fally in the house. Good morning. I expect politicians to lie, cheat, steal, be awful people. They think they're all better than you, so they're going to lord over you and make decisions for your own life. It's the average Democrat voter, folks, that we need to wake up. The voter ID situation notwithstanding, I did some talking about this morning in my video commentary. Yes, it seems like all the states that carried Kamala Harris don't have voter ID requirements. I'm just going to assume for a second that all the states she carried were legitimate. These people wanted to vote for a Democrat. They wouldn't be in power if it weren't for American citizens, American voters giving them that opportunity. Yeah, we're going to complain about Gavin Newsom all day long. We're going to complain about all the cultural failures at the institutional level, at the governmental level, but it's the voters that enable this to happen. We have to wake up Democrat voters to this nonsense. If you've got family members and friends, share this content with them. If you're in the chat, you're watching us today, you disagree with us, let us know in the comments below so we can help educate you a little bit. We'll be nice about it. But we've got to wake people up so that these politicians don't have any more chances to lie, cheat, steal, and enact these policies that ruin your life. And we got Carrie watching on YouTube. Right on.
Giddy up. Like the gang's all here. And I got to say, too, one thing I find really encouraging about this first quote, this is Stephen Miller, and he is the top Trump policymaker in the White House. And this guy, he just nails it. Like, let's put good people in jobs to do the jobs. Let's have good policies. Let's care about people, not fish. Let's make sure we're taking care of our country, not other countries. Oh my God, Todd, with this fire, there's so much to unpack. Where do we start?
We're going to go back in time. We've got 2 clips of Donald Trump. And again, this is not new what is happening. The things we're going to talk about today, the things that are the reason for it spreading so quickly and without anyone able to stop it, it's because of policies that have been in place for years. People have recognized that. People have been talking about it. Donald Trump's been talking about it. But again, because of the religious worldview that these Democrats hold, that the environment is the be-all, end-all, we've got to protect the fish. We can't clear brush. We can't do controlled burns. We can't harm the environment at all, but we will let the environment get harmed and your home is destroyed and lives lost as a result of these policies when the fires break out. So completely upside down. So we're going to get to Donald Trump's clip here, though. Jason, I want one more comment on the Stephen Miller clip. Whenever we talk about the scourge that is DEI, we often forget the last thing that he talked about in that quote. I'm so glad to see it in there. Yes, merit. Yes, competence. Yes, performance. I love that he added national interest. This idea that it is okay to be an American and put America first is now embedding itself in the anti-DEI, anti-woke narrative. And it's so awesome. Yes, you can be proud of being an American. Yes, your policies can put Americans first. You can hire the right people, absolutely, but make sure those people also have the right priorities, which is the American people and the American country itself.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting, too, because I'm going to be on a podcast next week. We're filming it Monday. I'm not sure what day he drops it, but it's somebody I go back and forth with, a conservative about Ukraine. He's pro-Ukraine and pro-Israel. And I'm like, we just shouldn't be spending money on these other countries. Like, they aren't benefiting us. And it's shocking. Like, that shouldn't even be a controversial position to take.
It shouldn't even be a position to take. How about we keep our money?
Exactly.
All right, we got to get into the clips here, folks.
6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years ago. Here's Donald Trump, little round table action, detailing all the things that he recognized, that we recognize, that would lead to greater catastrophe. Here he is.
Billions and billions of dollars for forest fires in California. There's no reason for those fires to be like they are. They're leaving them dirty. It's a disgraceful thing. Old trees are sitting there rotting and dry. And instead of cleaning it up, they don't touch them. They leave them. And we end up with these massive fires that we're paying hundreds of billions of dollars for to fix. And the destruction is incredible. So I think California ought to get their act together and clean up their forests and manage their forests, because it's disgraceful. What's happening should never happen. I go all over the country and I meet with governors. The first thing they say is there's no reason for forest fires like that in California. So I say to the governor, or whoever's going to be the governor of California, you better get your act together, because California, we're just not going to continue to pay the kind of money that we're paying because of fires that should never be to the extent. They were telling me in a couple of states, I won't even mention their name, it's like a flash. Some grass will burn. It'll be over in minutes. They'll lose 2 acres, 3 acres. At the most, they won't even lose that. And here we are with thousands of acres and billions of dollars every year. It's the same thing every year. And they don't want to clean up their forests because they have environmental problems in cleaning it up. It should be the opposite, because you're going to lose your forests. You're losing them. But it's costing our country hundreds of billions of dollars because of incompetence in California. So The people, I'm speaking now for the people of California. They don't want to see this happen. They're getting destroyed.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me, the whole comment was great, but as I said, and as Trump said, and I'm going to say it again, they don't take the necessary precautions to protect the environment. They don't cut down dead trees. They don't clear brush. They don't do controlled burns. They got to protect the environment. Don't touch the environment. And then what happens is more of the environment gets destroyed in these massive wildfires. How are they not seeing this? Their policies lead to greater destruction of the environment they claim to want to protect.
Anybody who's done something as simple as having a garden understands that there is a whole ecological system in play. And forests work that way without human intervention, right? Where, animals pollinate plants and they take, nuts and go plant them. And now you got a tree and then dead things fall and decompose. And part of that process is fires happen when too much debris builds up. And if you don't take care of it, it's going to be a fire. The second thing that we'll talk about, I think the next clip goes into that, is if you're going to have a house where there are fires around, one would need to build infrastructure to deal with that. Like, Todd, I'm in Minnesota. I own a snowblower. We've got fans who watch us from Arizona. I don't think they own a snowblower. Why? Because they don't need one. Like, cities don't own snowplows. But if you're going to have all these people and all these houses in around all these forests that are dangerous, especially if you're not going to clean them up, for God's sake, make sure that you're over prepared for dealing with forest fire. Like in Minnesota, when we get a huge snow, like they can't shut us down for more than like a day. Like, God love the state of Minnesota and the cities. They're good at that. Like, you can't shut us down. We're hardy people. We can get a foot of snow and it slows us down. School's delayed for 2 hours. And, when you see some parts of the country where it's like, oh, they got an inch of snow and they're shut down for a week. California needs to do that with forest fires. I mean, it's just common sense.
And Jason, I'm not an expert. Let me paraphrase Ketanji Brown Jackson. I don't know what a woman is. I don't know about firefighting much, but it seems to me that water is pretty effective at putting out fires. Wouldn't you know that the state of California, and we have another clip to talk about this, there were voters that actually said maybe we should build more infrastructure that allows for water to be available to put out fires when they come up. California said no to building that infrastructure. They said no to getting more water. And spoiler alert, it's in the next clip here because they had to protect a little tiny fish.
Let's play that one.
I wanted to touch on this too. Again, people are reading our mind here. We have a great audience. I wanted to say the same thing. Fally writes, maybe they should send some of them here in Montana so we can show you how to manage your forest. Montana rarely gets shut down. This was my question, Jason. I could be wrong about this. It seems like whenever you hear the word wildfire, it's always attached to California. Again, I'm not a geography expert, but it seems like Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Colorado, Montana, they all have pretty similar ecosystems. They all have big forests, but those forests never burn down. Like, what is special about California forests, California woodlands? That's my rhetorical question.
I was going to say, in this case, guys named climate change might have lit it on fire. We'll have to save some of those clips.
I have
some rumble only part.
We got some wild theories floating around over there about the origins as well.
Oh, should we get to that next clip?
Let's get to the next clip.
Let me give you one that you may not know.
Okay.
Which I think you know everything, actually, as
That's
a student of yours. but water, in Los Angeles you can't get proper amounts of water.
Right.
And it's unbelievably expensive. And you might have a house in Beverly Hills, and they're actually thinking about rationing water. Can you believe it?
I can believe
and
it.
I was in the farm court country with some of the congressmen. We're driving up a highway, and I say, how come all this land is so barren? It's farmland, and it looked terrible. It was just brown and bad. I said, but there's always that little corner that's so green and beautiful. They said, we have no water. I said, do you have a drought? No, we don't have a drought. I said, why don't you have no water? Because the water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north of water, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured. You got to see this. We're driving up, and I had never seen it before. It's like Iowa. It's the most fertile land. Iowa's blessed with great land. Idaho for a potato, right?
Yeah.
But they're just, by the way, some land is good for a potato, some land is good for corn. It's the craziest thing. I love the farmers. They're great. They're the greatest. And by the way, they're getting killed right now.
They are.
They're getting killed because of this stupid administration. But so I see this, and I said, you got to be kidding. I said, you mean you have water? And I looked at it. It's like a valve in your sink, except it's massive. The thing's 5 times taller than your ceiling.
Did you know the center of California was a giant lake?
They have so much water.
You ever see what it looked like before they rerouted
I never
it?
saw that.
The
no.
center of California, what was it, 200 years ago? How long ago did they do that, Jamie? The center of California had a fucking enormous lake in the middle of California.
So they dumped it into the Pacific.
Who knows what they did? But whatever foolishness that they did led to the situation that they're in now.
Think of those dry forests that burned down all over the world. The head of Austria said,
Here it is, Tulare Lake or Tachi Lake. It's a freshwater lake in the southern San Joaquin Valley, United States. Historically, Tulare Lake was one of the largest freshwater lakes west of the Mississippi. Show a photo of what it looked like back then.
It's a great system.
So that's what it looked like. Look at that image. Now, go to the one on the third from the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an enormous lake in the middle of California. Imagine that.
That'd be much more valuable property.
How crazy is that? But how crazy is that's what it used to look like? And human beings screwed that up.
No, they let it go into the Pacific, and then they.
I don't know what they did. What did they do? How did it go missing?
They said they drained it in 83.
Yeah, they drained it.
1983. Oh my God.
It went dry a handful of times.
Oh, went dry a handful of times. Well, lakes do go dry.
All right, that is a longer clip there. I actually had to do a little Googling too before this clip. I had never heard of Tulachi Lake. That sounds about right for California though, right, Jason?
Yeah, I was going to say, and Donald Trump starts with the great story. I love how he does the bob and weave. And this is a clip from when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast right before the election, which, by the way, if you've not gone and watched that podcast, you need to. And it's funny because this was a throwaway segment nobody talked about at the time. But the fish you see is a smelt fish. And the environmentalists in California had it set up where they need to reroute these millions of gallons of water to pour into the ocean to save the
Delta
whatever they call the nesting grounds of the fish, the breeding grounds of the smelt. So we put a fish ahead of making sure California citizens have adequate water. And Californians voted for this because it feels good to save the fish. Never mind that you're not giving yourself enough water to grow crops or infrastructure, to fight fires, that kind of thing. It's beyond ludicrous, Todd.
I mean, this is the logical conclusion, though, of this atheism, materialism, secularism, where they don't value human life that Christians do because we're made in the image of God. So they say, whatever, what's a few lives to burn in a fire? Or what's some barren farmland that could have fed people and provided cheaper food or whatever, what have you, job opportunities. We got to put the fish first.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. And actually, Christine coming in hot with the comment. All the news stations are carrying California fires. They hardly covered South Carolina, Florida, or Maui. Today, our president-elect was convicted as a felon. Now I see now on Facebook, it's a constitutional horror. Never should have happened. The judge can't wait to pin it on him. I'm absolutely disgusted in his henchmen. Merchant should be disbarred. Yeah, Christine, if you haven't made it over to Rumble's kind of like a YouTube platform. Go find us on the American Tribune because we do the first hour of the show on Facebook and YouTube, and then we head over to Rumble because we like to cover some things that these other platforms won't like us talking about. But yeah, the parallels between South Carolina and Maui, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, and to the point about the comment, like, man, we're spending so much time covering the LA fires, and as we should. This is a big story. You're watching a massive fire just sweep across LA County. But North Carolina, Florida, when they got ravaged by the hurricane, you didn't hear about anything. you didn't see a federal response necessarily. You got the Amish building homes out there, and then you got the federal government saying, no, you can't build homes. We're not going to give them homes. We're going to give them a $750 check. But no, you can't go help those people down there. So it is interesting to see the news coverage of these natural disasters. That kind of segues me to this next video really fast. Here's Joe Biden. Remember when you got a $750 check if you lived in North Carolina, you lost everything? Hope that gets you on your feet, folks. Joe Biden just promised to pay for 100% of the recovery and then the cleanup for the next 180 days. Take a listen.
Due to the magnitude of the disaster, I was talking with the governor, and he requested if I could increase the federal funding that was authorized under this legislation from 75% to 90%. We're increasing it to 100% of all the costs to be covered by the federal government for both the fire management systems grants and the elements of what they call the disaster declaration. So today I'm announcing that the federal government will cover 100% of the cost for 180 days. This is going to pay for things like debris and hazard material removal, temporary shelters, first responders' salaries, and all necessary measures to protect life and property. And folks, I want to underscore, I told the governor and local officials, spare no expense to do what they need to do and contain these fires.
Spare no expense. Jason, how much money is going to get wasted here? How much of this money ends up in the pockets of people that support Democrats?
Right. I mean, this is the biggest grift ever. And I mean, it just boggles my mind where you compare the coverage of California to Maui. And we got to be real careful, I guess, talking about this on
Let's
some
go to
of the
Rumble
platforms.
for Maui.
What's that?
We'll save Maui for Rumble.
We'll save Maui. But even South Carolina, like they were talking about kicking people out of their hotels this week. You know, it's and this shouldn't be a conspiracy theory, but you want to know why they're doing it? Because that woman sitting right next to Joe Biden, they're going to try to install her as the governor of California. It's just as simple as that.
It's vote buying. Whenever they hand out money, there's always a motive, and usually that motive is vote buying. Nailed it, Jason.
Right.
And I got to say this. I appreciate that. I mean, in some sense, the government exists to help people. I'm glad I know there's corruption. I know there's other motivations here. It should help people. I'm glad the American people in California are going to get back on their feet. That is a good thing. I'm not disparaging that in and of itself. But taken as a whole, you can only see the political corruption in this. That there's a reason they ignored other people. FEMA reportedly wouldn't help people with Trump signs after the hurricane hit the East Coast. So no, I don't believe them at their face when they say, we're just doing this to help the people of California. But Jason, I'm kind of tired of the federal government bailing everybody out. And I know if a tornado hits my home tomorrow, I would take whatever check the government wrote me. But at some point, if you live in Florida and you live where there's hurricanes, or you live in California and you vote not to take care of your forests and there's wildfires that break out, like at some point, should individuals be responsible for insuring their own property if they're in a higher risk area? Essentially what Joe Biden is saying is that, hey, you in Maine and you in Montana, you're going to subsidize these people living in beautifully geographically located states, and bad things happen there more often, and you're going to pay them, you're going to compensate them for living there and making that choice. Like, the whole system bothers me at some level because I don't want to subsidize other people's lifestyle. Like, I'm glad you live on the ocean. There are risks associated with that. You should pay for those risks, not me. Right.
Well, and that we should probably dive into the insurance thing if we can find that.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen just to read the article here. Give me a second, Jason.
So California, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but California is going after the big bad corporations. Now, this is funny. For those who watch the podcast, Todd and I hate corporations. We think they're evil, they're corrupt, like all the things. But corporations are the situation we currently live in. California thought it was a good idea to limit how much you could increase premiums in the state. And so State Farm, which, shout out, I'm a State Farm customer, they looked at him and said, we don't have enough. People don't even understand how insurance works, which blew me away, Todd. Like, I was talking with people. They don't understand that basically what you're doing is everybody's pooling their money and the company running the insurance needs to have enough money to pay for everything and then still make a profit. Like, that's how it works. You're distributing the risk. That's all it is. It's if there's not enough money in the pot, the insurance company goes out of business and nobody would insure it. So people didn't know that, which is funny. So State Farm was saying we need to be able to raise rates. They passed legislation that limited how much they could raise the rates. And State Farm said, if there's a bad fire, we'll go bankrupt. We're going to quit selling policies. So because Democrats were doing the right thing by limiting how much the insurance companies could charge, insurance carriers left, and they were left with a state-run insurance program, which was more expensive and ridiculous. But Todd, I'll let you cover the article.
Can I just say first, Jason, they're going to cap what you pay for insurance. And at the same time, they will raise my property taxes 15% this year. Do you see the problem, folks? When it comes to a private company operating in the private sector, they're not allowed to manage and balance their budget. But when it comes to the public sector, government will steal and raise rates all day long, and no one blinks an eye. Politicians love stealing your property taxes, love stealing your income taxes. But we can't have this insurance company trying to make sure that it makes a profit. I just had to say that piece here. But here's the deal, and it wasn't just State Farm. All state farmers, they dropped out of California because, again, if they can't raise rates and make sure that they are protected from these massive payouts, it doesn't make sense to do business in California. And Jason, just like the healthcare scam, single payer insurance, wouldn't you know that the state of California has the California Fair Access to Insurance Requirements Plan, i.e. single payer state funded homeowners insurance? They want to get rid of all of the free market options, and they want you consolidated under their government plan. So I'm going to read one paragraph from the story here. State Farm's decision reflects a trend of private insurers, including Allstate and Farmers, of dropping California policies or halting underwriting, leaving homeowners with the choice of getting coverage through the insurer of last resort. Yeah, the insurer of last resort. It's not like they tried to push you in that direction. The California Fair Access to Insurance Requirements Plan, or FAIR Plan. Oh, that sounds nice. It's the FAIR Plan. Or forego insurance altogether. The FAIR Plan provides basic fire insurance coverage for properties in high-risk areas when traditional insurance companies will not. I'm going to rewrite that last part right there. It's not that they will not, it's that they cannot under existing California law. As a result, homeowners in Pacific Palisades had increasingly shifted to the FAIR Plan, with roughly 1,400 of the town's 9,000 homes covered by the plan in 2024, more than quadruple the number in 2020. In other words, prior to the disaster, about 1 in 7 homeowners were reliant on the FAIR Plan. It just goes on. And as you read this, you're just like, corruption, government overreach. Like, how does someone read this and they're like, well, I'm glad the FAIR Plan exists?
Well, and I got to say, I am conspiratorial as most people. Valley, I heard a lot of policies were canceled 2 months before the fires. Tim Wells joining in from Facebook, set up agenda from the elites, Gates, Soros. Todd, this is going to be crazy. I mean, I am the original conspiracy theorist. I often break out my tinfoil hat. In this one, I think it's just incompetence. I don't think this one was an evil plot from the rich people. Unlike Maui, tune into Rumble only. We'll get into that. But I think this one was just ineffective governance. If you make it where private insurers can't make a profit, they're going to leave. And that's why in some cases, like Donald Trump came out, said we're going to cap credit card interest rates, and Bernie hopped on board. And as much as I love President Trump, I violently disagree with that, because if you start doing that, like, it's not going to work. Like, government getting involved in setting prices never works. So
Just in, folks, you can't manipulate the market like that. I don't know why these people think it works. We didn't do communism right ever before, but we're smarter now. We know better now. We know how we can do price controls, and somehow that'll make it all better.
Right. Yeah.
I will say this, though, Jason. In the article, it does say about 1,600 policies in Pacific Palisades were dropped by State Farm in July. So there is truth to that claim. Lots of folks just lost coverage on the spot, but not 2 months. So we're going back July, so half a year ago. But same thing. You're scrambling either to find new coverage, you hop on the government plan there, the FAIR Plan. It sounds so nice. Or you forego insurance. And my goodness, I mean, these are expensive homes that are getting burned too.
And here's what's sad, though. Somehow, some way, the politicians are going to try to cover for their rich friends.
Oh.
Those millionaires who might not have got around, who reliably vote Democrat, they're going to end up getting their house rebuilt. Meanwhile, if you're in South Carolina, they're kicking you out of the Motel 6. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, spare no expense. That's what Joe Biden told Gavin Newsom. Take care of yours, my man.
All right, so as we're breaking this down, so one, we don't have water because we're protecting the smelt, and we haven't built up enough infrastructure. Two, people don't even have protections because we made it where insurers can't be profitable, so the insurers dropped. Todd, where do we go on this on this next stop on our journey of?
Well, we've been railing against Democrat voters. Hate to pick on Democrat voters, but you're sleeping in the bed that you made. You voted for governance that would lead to these disasters. But Jason, interestingly, it sounds like California voters wised up 8 years ago. They voted to build infrastructure to be able to fight fires such as this. And it kind of reminds me of the EV story. How many EV chargers did we build across the country to the tune of billions of dollars?
I think, wasn't it 2 billion and we've built like 8?
Right. Well, it gets worse in California. The voters wanted this done, and 8 years later, not a single thing was constructed. Take a listen to this.
It's a mess. And now we've got these wildfires. You come to find out that 8 years ago, California voted to approve a $7.5 billion water bond to construct water storage facilities. And maybe you want to take a guess how many storage facilities have been built in those 8 years. Would you like to take a guess? You got it. I bet you in your head, you're like, you can't tell me. No, you're telling me not one has reached completion. Not one. And meanwhile, all the snow melt and all that water is flowing right into the Pacific Ocean.
It's almost like they want this to happen. I hate to put the tinfoil hat on, Jason. I'm not particularly smart. I'm just a dude with a camera and a microphone. But I look around and I think, yeah, if you don't have brush that serves as kindling for these bigger fires, that would kind of slow them down. If you had access to water, you could put the fire out. Certainly, the people in government understand this basic principle as well, and yet they don't do anything about it. It's almost like they want to watch it all burn, and I mean that literally.
Well, it is, and the most charitable interpretation, it's funny, we compare it to the broadband thing, which we've talked about on this podcast. We've gone into it, but Congress passed a bill where they're going to spend a bunch of money getting everybody internet access. And they literally could have called up Elon Musk and said, we want Starlink in all these houses. And they would have got Starlink for like a quarter of the price of the total bill. Meanwhile, they spend like 4, 5, 10 times as much, and nobody's been connected to the internet. Government is the least effective way of getting anything done.
And that's the charitable take, Jason. It's just that they're ineffective. That's the benefit of the doubt right there. As Kagan Girl says, it's on purpose. That's kind of where I'm leading. Yeah, it's not stupidity. It's not lies. It's malevolence. That's what I say now.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, I tend to think that they want it to burn because when communists want chaos, because in chaos comes their ability to centralize power. Like, we get that, but it's even like best case scenario, it's just like we're just really bad at running civilization.
Yeah, and yet they want to be in charge. Vote for us because we're really bad at doing this. Yeah, the point about now, they're going to deflect. They want problems because when there's a problem, we all remember the pandemic. Hey guys, we are going to keep you safe with all these public health measures. They always accumulate power in times of crisis. I love this tweet that breaks it down. Again, I guess it's a tweet. I'm going to say this every time we have a tweet that we share. I don't know what you call a post on X now. But Jeremy Kaufman, great follow out of New Hampshire. He says, every step of what happens in California is predictable. Number one, the government denies reality. It sets price caps on insurers. We talked about that just now, and listens to environmentalists instead of fire experts. We've talked about that. Number two, reality occurs. Homes burn. Number three, politicians blame others. Politicians will now blame greedy insurance companies and or climate change rather than face reality. Number four, the media runs cover. You will see very few stories in centrist or left-wing media that blame price caps or forest mismanagement. Jason, as an aside there, I think we have a David Muir clip. I guess I haven't seen how the media is covering this other than like Is that how they're saying it? Like it's climate change? The earth is warming up and that makes it more conducive to fires? Like, are they actually saying that?
They are saying that.
Fair enough. Number 5, the government gets bigger. Politicians and the media will work together to push for bailouts to homeowners paid for by taxpayers. More regulations for insurance will be proposed. And number 6, nothing changes. 1 year from today, California will still have price caps and still not manage its forests properly.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting, and we'll dive into it more in the Rumble only section, but they're starting to arrest some people that are opportunistically starting fires, shall we say. And they're exactly who you think they'd be. And I'm seeing like great memes on the Twitter where it's where they're like labeling the guy's name as climate change. like this dude's name is climate change, and look what he just did. It's really pretty funny, but it's exactly what you'd think it would be.
Yeah, and this comment right here too. Where did that comment go? All right, Pete's watching over on Facebook. Thanks for watching us, Pete. Head over to Rumble, get the app on your phone, go to your desktop browser, rumble.com. You can find us at the American Tribune, because we will be wrapping up shortly, but we're going to keep the show going over on Rumble where we can talk about a little bit more. Great comment, though. I hope Trump limits the cost until the insurance companies pay their part. People are forced to have insurance, yet the insurance industry doesn't want to pay, and they request the government to pay so the insurance companies can keep their money, but the insurance industry will drop your coverage or raise your rates to the point you can't afford coverage. Like, yeah, government bailouts, this is going to happen. Joe Biden promised it. He's going to help pay for the recovery. No, that's the job of the insurance company. That's why I pay you. Other taxpayers on the other side of the country don't have to pay for your mistakes. But again, we talked about California's mismanagement of insurance. They set a ceiling on what they could raise their rates at. So it is a California governance problem. But yes, it's also an insurance problem because this happens every time. Federal bailouts. Oh, no one's buying cars in 2008. Here's taxpayer money. Oh, there was a massive disaster and you can't cover the bottom line insurance company. Taxpayer bailout. Like, we have got to get off of this bailout train. All these giant corporations that you and I hate, Jason, they know there's no accountability if they don't balance their books or they take on too much or they can't pay out all at once. They know the government's there to help them out.
Well, yeah, and if I permission to dovetail or to go on to a little dovetail and expansion of it. All right. I'll go back to the housing crisis. The housing crisis happened, and there should have been multiple banks that crashed. Like, there should have been banks were doing bad things with these loans, and everybody came up with this concept of too big to fail. Now, I'm going to say, as a private guy, even though I'm by no means a rich man, like me and a buddy got together, we started buying up single family homes before investment companies like BlackRock got in and just cleaned them all out. But there was this window where you could have had redistribution of wealth, meaning these big corporations that were corrupt and doing things awful could have failed. And entrepreneurial Americans who wanted to, do things, it could have been a major reshuffling. Same with these insurance companies. Like, if these guys are doing their business wrong, I mean, the government intervention is bad, but we got to let insurance companies fail, because then the insurance industry will still exist. People will build the new insurance agents. But the answer should never be, let's have the government build it, because the government can't build anything. They can't. Oh, yes, it's bad.
All right, I'm trying to think what we can play that's clean here. We've got some interesting LA-Ukraine connections. I think we'll save that for Rumble. But I like this right here, Jason. Imagine if a Republican were in charge, a Republican had traveled overseas and sounded indifferent to the crisis of their constituents. I know how that would be covered. When Ted Cruz fled to Mexico, when I think Dallas got hit by cold weather years ago, that was a huge story. But when you're a Democrat, you can get away with anything you want. Take a listen as the LA mayor, former Congresswoman Karen Bass, gets busted. I think she's in Ghana. I don't know why an LA mayor is over in Africa to begin with, but she's there. The fire is taking place back home, and here is her interaction with a reporter when she gets confronted by it.
David Blevins from Sky News in the UK. We're fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Have you no response to that? Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today?
Can you back up? Appreciate it.
Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor.
Again, I'm not an expert, Jason. It seems to me, I can't believe I'm giving her free advice. It seems to me like you would say, I am so sorry for what's happening to the people of Los Angeles. I am coming home as soon as I can to be on the ground, to activate whatever help I can. Like, just say something meaningless. We don't believe you when you say it. We know you don't care, but just say that. I can't get over the fact that she is silent there, ignoring the reporter. Hey, your city's on fire. People are dying. Any comment? And just nothing.
Todd, we are not professional politicians. Neither is our audience. But how are you so stupid that you can't just say, even the famous thoughts and prayers?
I know.
You know, I was doing critical work over here in Ghana as the mayor of Los Angeles, but I'm going to be home soon. And I've got my whole staff boots on the ground, which, Todd, you're the mayor of LA. What in the F are you doing in Ghana?
So many questions.
Do you think if we took a map into LA and walked around to citizens of LA and said, I'll give you $1,000 if you can point to Ghana, how many thousands of dollars do you think we would give away?
Oh, we'd be broke. Just kidding. We would have all of our money still. Nobody can tell you why she's over there.
Right. Can I blow your mind too, Todd?
That's what I'm here for. That's what our audience is here for, Jason.
Right. So putting this in perspective, this Bass woman, very unimpressive. She was on the short list. She was one of the top 4 finalists for Vice President of the United States. I went back,
right? Because she's a black woman. She was going to be Joe Biden's running mate.
Well, no, she was on the list that the Biden campaign. So what they do, Joe Biden had said, I need a black woman as my running mate. And so then they leaked the list to the news outlet so they could start floating it in, you know, to see kind of what the public reaction would be. And if you can believe it, this woman was one of the top 5 on the list, reportedly, allegedly.
I mean, that list was pretty short. Black woman politician that, can you imagine like a Jasmine Crockett? Like so many of these people wrote themselves off the list. So I don't know if that was that long of a list. And like we got Kamala Harris, like that says a lot about Karen Bass when she wasn't good enough to compete with Kamala Harris.
Right. But it was funny because when her name first came up, I'm like, oh, I had to go back. And I went back on the Google and looking at the list. And I'm like, God dang, that was her. Like she was almost the vice president of the United States.
I don't know, Jason. I have tried not to say this. I almost made it an hour in. I hate to blame voters because politicians are corrupt to begin with. None of us deserve what they do to us. But at the same time, yeah, we're outraged that the mayor's not there. But Democrats overwhelmingly voted her to be their mayor. Like, I'm finally going to say it. You kind of get what you vote for. Like, not my job to subsidize insurance payouts, building your house again. You chose to live there. You chose to vote Democrat or live in a Democrat majority state. That's on you. And if you're an LA citizen, most Los Angelinos voted Democrat. That's why she's mayor. I'm not blaming you for the fire. I'm not blaming you for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss. But Barack Obama said elections have consequences. I don't know. What will it take for people to stop voting Democrat? That's all I want to know.
Todd, I don't know if we can get through to enough of them. And that's what's scary. I mean, I'm seeing some signs like the new dude in Arizona, Ruben Galeo, he actually supporting the Lake and Riley Act. I'm sure it's political. Like, I'm not trusting, but, John Fetterman's going to meet with Trump. Fetterman's actually turns out to be kind of a voice of reason somewhat. Like, and we talk about it on the show. We ask people to share with your Democrat normie friends because and Republicans used to be this way. So before conservatives get high and mighty, understand pre-Donald Trump, we were fed spoons full of crap from the establishment Republican Party and we just gobbled it up, right? Trump is like, hey guys, they're lying to you. And we're like, oh, yeah, it turns out they were. Democrats are in that same brain fog right now where they believe all this. They believe the corporatists, they believe all of it. And we need to wake up those Democrat voters that your party is run by awful people. And don't get me wrong, the non-America First Republicans are just as bad. So if you want to put Mitch McConnell in the same boat as Chuck Schumer and Karen Bass and all these people, like, have at it. But yeah, your party's just trash. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to putting out fires because, again, I don't understand this when you're on the Pacific Ocean. I would imagine salt water is just as effective as fresh water when it comes to dousing gigantic flames that are consuming your community. Why can't they, as barrier? I've always said they can pipe ocean water through treatment plants and pipe it all the places that need it. Why aren't they piping ocean water right now? I have, Jason, where I live, I can put a pump in my lake and carry it up a hill to water my garden. Why don't they have hoses in the ocean right now and they're fighting the fire with water right out of the Pacific? Skip the treatment plant, skip it all, get a generator firing up. Like, there have to be better ways to do this. And I'm kind of exaggerating the simplicity of it all. But Edward's last comment says they'll have plenty of water, but they don't because of the politicians and the rich folks. It's all part of a master plan. They can't make this cheap and available. It seems so simple.
Well, and the reason they'll give you is because salt water will cause additional damage. Although that's a hard argument to face when everything is just
when the fire is causing pretty significant damage.
Right, yeah. But that's why they don't, I mean, just for fun fact check, like, that's why they don't incorporate salt water into fire prevention until it reaches a certain point, is if you start spraying it on a house, you're just going to total the house. So,
I mean, I get that, but you also stop the fire. I would rather ruin one house on the block to make that where the fire stops than burn down 10 other houses. And at least we didn't put salt in there.
Right. Yeah. That's what I mean. If you're using it as like a last resort emergency situation, in case of whatever, break glass and pull the thing. Yeah, that would totally be valid. Hey, and you know what? The last person we had, Kev, showed up. Marxist.
Yes, welcome aboard, Kev.
Yeah. See, now it feels like the gang's all here.
We just need Big Bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Where is Big Bad? Yeah, although Big Bad gets kind of busy. Like him joining in is kind of
rare.
That's
a special day.
Yeah, someday we'll actually have him on the show. What are you gonna do? Yeah, and K-Gun Girl, no common sense anymore. It's crazy.
And again, my only comment to that, no common sense, it's not because they're dumb. I don't think it's lack of common sense. I just think it's purely motivated by evil. Like, they could do these things. I think they recognize that these solutions exist. They choose not to. So I'm done believing it. I'm done asking the question, is it because they're wrong or stupid or ill-informed? I don't think it's any of that. I think it's because they're purely motivated by power, control, and just this immoral worldview that they hold.
Right. Oh, and Kevin's asking, what time does the show begin? I always find it when it's almost over. So we start on all the platforms at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock Eastern. And then we go over and do the last half hour on Rumble only where we say things. And every Friday. Todd does a Tuesday, Thursday show. What time's that? 9:30, right?
I do a live show Tuesday and Thursday. It's me flying solo. We have some fun together. That is on a separate Rumble channel. We just want to clutter this main Rumble channel. So you're watching on the American Tribune. I do a live show Tuesday, Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Central at another channel called the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Check it out right now. Give us a follow. There's lots of episodes up there. I think we started last November, but we're trucking.
Yeah, and I think as we close out the Rumble part of the Facebook, YouTube part of the show, Todd, I think we got to pull this one up. And we're going to be very careful as we talk about this before we go Rumble only.
Little preview, a little sneak peek.
And for those who aren't familiar, first, for those watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, thank you. We love you. Hopefully someday they're saying Facebook might not be as censored. You might actually be able to say things. So we might be able to do a whole show on Facebook. But Rumble is an app. It's like YouTube. You can search rumble.com. There's an app you can get on your phone. Our channel's called the American Tribune. That's the name of all of our properties. And Todd and I will be live there for another half. We always say a half hour, but it ends up being like 45, 50 minutes till one of us has to, like, kids call us or whatever. But DEI is one of the most dangerous, caustic things ever to happen in America. And what it means is our system functions when you take the most qualified people and let them continue moving up the chain of command, right? Until your best and your brightest are on top. Now, oh man, boy, the three kings. Now, I'm just going to pose this as a question, and we'll get more into it after the break on the Rumble side. Firefighters generally, if you've met them, are in large toxic masculinity people. They're a lot of times white men, black men, Hispanic men. They're very athletic. They're very physical. They are alpha males a lot of times. Like if you went into a firehouse, you would see mostly strong men. So if you look at who's going to be running your important positions of that organization, I would expect that they would reflect the demographics of the people on the ground. Instead, you have three people named Kristen Crowley, who's the fire chief, making $400,000 a year. Kristen Kepner, she's the assistant chief, and Kristen Larson, who is the Lesbian Equity Bureau chief, making $399,000. So you're saying out of a population of mainly men, largely white, alpha males, the most qualified people to run this organization are three lesbians named Kristen.
What are the odds? And Jason, this is neither here nor there. I'm not a full-on believer of simulation theory, but when I look at these photos, the one on the right looks like a James McAvoy actor. The one in the middle looks like the bad guy from Breaking Bad, Giancarlo Esposito. I'm still trying to put my finger on who the one on the left looks right, but I'm telling you, folks, once you see it, you can't unsee it either.
You're right. On that, we should probably wind up this and go to Rumble only.
I think so. It's been a pleasure, folks. It's always a fast hour on Facebook, but as Jason was referencing, there's some things we want to talk about, some comments we want to make that we are not comfortable saying on some of these big tech platforms, YouTube and Facebook specifically. But if you are watching on Facebook, you want to keep watching us, we're going to keep going live on Rumble. Head over to Rumble, get the app, head over in your desktop browser, search out the American Tribune. That is our main Rumble channel. That is where we are streaming live right now. We're going to take a 60-second break. We've got more videos. We've got more headlines. And we're just getting started because now we are uncensored.
Well, yeah, and shout out to Kev. Todd, we got that video.
Oh, I have the video. Yeah, Kev, stick around. I have the video. You got to see this.
Starting on day one, we'll implement a rapid series of bold reforms to restore our nation to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen, just as we had just a short time ago. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Great again. Great again.
All right, welcome back, folks. That was a technical issue. Jason, I hit the wrong video for our segue there.
I got to say, Todd, we might need to relook at our production staff and be like, what are we doing? Oh, wait, who's the production staff?
Shoot. Folks, I might not. This might be my last show. Jason might fire me.
Well, no, I think you would have to fire you.
Yeah, oh, shoot, because I'm a co-owner of the business as well. All right, this is going to be a tough conversation.
Right?
I don't know.
All
maybe
right.
I'm the DEI hire, Jason. Was I put in this position for the wrong reasons?
Todd, you were the token heterosexual white male. Oh, wait.
Oh,
I'm a heterosexual white
that was
male.
all of us. Whoops.
Yeah. We need to hire a lesbian. If anybody knows any good lesbian content creators, let's bring them on. All right, let's talk about these clowns.
Can I play the video right away? I can't handle
play
this.
the
I just
video.
want to play the video, and then we'll come back to this graphic. We'll talk about these clowns right here. But as Kev referenced, there is a video of the gal in the middle, as I said on X, the thing, because I don't know what I'm looking at here. I don't know what these people believe in. She hates men. She's fine if you burn in your house if you're a man. I'm pretty in tune with what they say. Most things don't shock me. This video shocked me.
Want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
So there it is. Let's just keep that person up there for a second.
No. Let's go a little farther. Let's go to this. Okay. Folks, let's say you're in your house and it's on fire, and you're worried about your pets and your family and everything. And you see this out of shape black woman that looks like a librarian running up to your house. What's going to go through your mind?
I'm dead. I am dead.
Right. Like, I don't know about you, Todd, but I want some like super strong, buff dude who looks like he can throw the couch on his shoulder and, throw grandma on his shoulder and carry it out. Like, that's what I want.
I want my whole family on his back, running out of the house, just busting down doors. If this person shows up to your house, just say your prayers, get the last right, like you're done for.
Right. And now,
I don't know how long the video plays of this person running.
Oh my God.
Look at that waddling, like you're done. They won't even get into the house by the time you're dead. What is that?
And is the first responder gonna have the paddles? Because it looks like this chubby had one too many burritos. And by no means is this just a rip on her. If you see me running up to your house to save your life, like, you should be terrified. Like, things have gone horribly wrong if I am the best person as a 50-year-old out of shape white male to go try to bust on your door and put out a fire.
Now, how hard is this, Jason? I want a trained surgeon on the table. I don't care what they look like. I want them to be good at surgery. When my house is on fire, I don't care what they look like. I want them to be large, buff, capable. This is it. And then Kev makes the comment here. This is what this person said at the beginning of the video. I don't care if they look like a Martian. I want my family and my house saved. Yeah, this person's talking about representation, because I know, I would love to pose this to a liberal here. You care so much about representation, you claim. Is that your first thought when the firefighter comes banging down the door with their axe to get you out of your burning house? I'm glad it's a black person because I'm black and I wouldn't have felt safe if it was a white person coming in to rescue me. It is so delusional, but it gets people killed. That's the point. DEI gets people killed.
Kevin's on fire too. See, that's why we got to get here on here on time. It runs like a rerun from What's Happening. For those of you old enough in the crowd to ever watch What's Happening, that was a really funny joke.
Yeah. But then we talked about it earlier, how they hate you. They would rather preserve the Delta smelt than make sure that you are fed, watered, alive if there's a big fire. And this thing right here says, oh, what do you mean I have to carry your husband out? He shouldn't have been there in the first place. She is literally laughing at the idea of your husband getting burned alive in a house because he's an idiot. Why is he in a burning house? Why do you need me to save you? Never mind that that's the job description of a firefighter. It always comes back to they hate humanity. They hate you as an individual.
And notice, too, how they frame this, because this is important with these awful frickin' Marxists. If they asked her about a fat black woman or a fat Latino woman instead of a husband, she would not have answered so smug.
Correct.
And because this is the same person who's probably made a video saying, you need to let fat people have 2 airplane seats for free because you don't want to be fat phobic. They're just awful. They think they can just take shots at husbands and men and whatnot, and of course she's a box muncher, so that's part of it. And she don't think she need no man. But how on earth you let a fire department say, there's a certain amount of physical requirements to do this job. Do you have them? and them answering like, well, you shouldn't have been in trouble in the first place. And like you see this whole leftist movement where there's no personal accountability. You can be as slovenly as you want. You can be fat and ridiculous. They want to try to make seats wider, planes bigger to fit your fat ass in it. But like you can talk about a husband burning to death, like ridiculous.
Yeah, this is like a 20-second video, and somehow she contradicted herself in that 20 seconds. At the beginning, it's like, they need to see representation. They need to see this big, black, Latina, lesbian, whatever she is, storming into your house to save you, and at the same time, not save you if you don't check the same boxes as she does.
And I got to say, Todd, you said it earlier. If my house is on fire, if I got a troop of Mexicans show up or Asians or white people or black people, I don't care. I do want them to look like athletic, like they could actually do the job, or even if they don't look physically imposing, they actually be able to do the job. Like, hey, could you throw me at 200 pounds over your shoulder and carry me out if you had to? And that's where DEI gets bad. You set these physical requirements for what you need to do your job. And then to open up DEI, so to make it more diverse, you say, well, not enough women can meet the physical requirements. Because I'll be honest, there are some badass women out there that would be strong enough to throw me over their shoulder and carry me out of my house. I don't care. You can be a fireman. Like, I don't care, firewoman, whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't care. We can have women do the job. But they got to meet the same physical requirements they determined. Every one of these fat lesbians did not meet the physical requirements. They had to modify the physical requirements so that they could do it.
Jason, can you imagine the new firefighter calendar? Remember how it was always hulky dudes? And in college,
Right.
the girls would have these firefighters all just buffed out and sweaty and oily. Like, God forbid the LA Fire Department ever put out a calendar with these things in a swimsuit and looking all sexy in their minds. Like, oh, just get me out of here.
Right. It's, oh my God.
All right. But now we got to get into more DEI. It's not new. Firefighting is mostly white and male, and a California program aims to change that. Nothing says we are going to let more people die by removing the people that do the life-saving. Too white and male, too successful. We better make sure we have these fat black lesbians in charge of the department. What?
Think of this. This headline ran, and there wasn't universal condemnation. It's kind of like that last video that we showed. Like, the government of LA put that video together and put it out with a big fat black lesbian saying, well, yeah, I might not be big enough to carry your husband out, but what's he doing there in the first place? And people weren't up in arms. People weren't like, they should have been demanding her resignation. This person should have been, and this is from NPR. Todd, who pays for NPR?
We do. Donald Trump needs to take away all NPR funding. I don't know why it still exists. It just needs to be defunded. But firefight is mostly white. We read that headline. And Jason, shot and chaser, wouldn't you know that in a follow-up article, USC shortage of wildland firefighters. Who could have seen that coming?
Right. Yeah. So now you say we want to get rid of the white alpha toxic males who actually do the job. We want fat black lesbians. And then it turns out not as many people do it. Hey, but Todd, the other thing they did you grab the article about the vax?
Oh, we have the vax.
I mean, because of course you can't put the pattern together without addressing the vax.
I think it was this one.
But now, after the worst time of COVID, after the largest, most deadly spike, downtrends in death, my employer, a governing body, is deciding to mandate a rushed vaccine. Not only that it will be mandate, but it's a condition of my employment. We've gone from essential frontline worker to next on the chopping block. I agree. Such times of uncertainty really force me to think and examine my surroundings. The job that I love, the job that I poured my heart and soul into is being threatened. Anything that gets put into my body is my choice. I refuse. I do not comply.
There's a flashback. I would bet 95% of the country has completely forgotten all of the COVID tyranny.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so these are actually LA firefighters.
They look like a firefighter. Yeah, we need more of that.
Yeah, now, and I don't know what race these guys are. I mean, the middle guy looks maybe a little Hispanic. The left guy looks like a white dude. Relatively athletic. You know, they could probably kick down a door if they had to. I'm betting they could do the physical requirements of the job. But they lost hundreds of these type of people because they didn't want to do the experimental jab. So back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, is some of this plan and some of this incompetence. I think it's a combination of both. But I think a lot of your institutions, they were more than happy to drive out the strong white males with these vaccine mandates, because they knew strong white males would be like, screw that. The government can't tell me what to do. And that just helps clear the way for big fat black lesbians to come in.
Yeah, nailed it. And I want to get to Fally's comment here. Again, this is our point to DEI. It's the same thing if you see someone in need. Do I ask your political view before I help? No. When you help somebody, when they're helping you, you're not asking who did you vote for. They're not asking, are you gay or straight? I don't care that you're white or black. And this is how you know the Democrat voters, again, I'm going to target the normie Dem voters in my comment here. This is how I know you don't believe what you're voting for and pretend to champion. It's all empty virtue signaling. It's free to do until there's a crisis. You're not asking, is my surgeon black or white? When you need help, you say, I want the best surgeon that I can afford. When my house is on fire, I'm not turning you away if you're a toxic white male. I'm saying, thank God someone is here to pull me out of this wreckage. When push comes to shove, when rubber meets the road, these clowns, these normie Democrat voting clowns that feel so good about themselves, they go to sleep at night, they'll message you on Facebook and say you're a monster for supporting Donald Trump, he's such a racist. They don't care about that either when it actually matters.
And here's what's ironic too. If you like, I think a lot of people that are executing this stuff are just stupid and don't know any better, right? Those three lesbians, I don't think they think they're part of some grand conspiracy to destroy things, right? But you know who benefits when you put incompetent people in positions of power that destroy things. California, I hate to say it, they're going to become more communist and more leftist after this fire, because they're going to be relying on the government to rebuild it. They're going to be relying on BlackRock to help fund it. They're going to lean in, because none of these weak people want to take care of themselves. None of these weak people took the initiative to go get insurance, and none of these weak people are prepared for it, or they just want big daddy government to help them. And I think in our minds, we would say, okay, it's going to wake them up. These policies, these crazy people we put in charge, they let our city burn. I think it's going to have the opposite effect in California.